Welcome back! We have done language. It's me, Mr. Salles, with Mr. Everything English, and we're now going to zap you with structure. This is for question 3 of paper 1 and question 5 when you get to use all these structural techniques in your brilliant writing. What are we starting with?
We are starting nice and easy. Guys. We are starting with sentences. Now, sentences looks at long and short sentences. First things first, does it mean longest sentence? Does it mean shortest sentence? When you're looking at the extract, you find the one that you think is the best worth talking about. Now, guys, me personally, talking about sentences when it comes to paper 1 question 3 is your backup, is a worst case scenario. Because it's very hard to talk about the effect of sentences without saying the same run-of-the-mill, builds up tension or adds detail. For question 5, yes. For question 5, you are showing off. So question 5, you're showing your skill of using long and short paragraphs, long and short sentences. That's different. Use them all day long. But for question 3, only talk about sentences if you can't find any of the other 9 devices that we shall discuss. That was very, very easy, guys. That is your backup, long and short sentences. Number 2 on our lovely list is...
we're looking at paragraphing. Now, the great thing about paragraphing is this is a convention where writers always show you a change of focus. And hey, guess what? Question 3 is always about the changes of focus. So if you just write something about each paragraph, you're going to be answering the question. In question 5, you can get a bit creative with your paragraphs. And so it's really cool to be able to repeat the pattern. So maybe you've had a long sentence and then the paragraph ends with a really short sentence, and then you repeat that structure later on. It gives a real polish to your writing. I love that technique.
I teach my students that after paragraph 1 and paragraph 3, they do a 1-line paragraph.
Yes.
So visually, I want to say, I don't care if you have big handwriting or small handwriting, you make it 1 line. Just because visually, as an examiner, you put them in a position that, look, this kid has got varying paragraph lengths. They've got long paragraphs and they've got very short paragraphs. Guys, number 3, you've all got phones, you've all got smartphones. And this is how I look at zooming in and zooming out. Imagine you all pulled out your camera and you pinched your screen. When you pinch your screen, do you zoom in or zoom out? I believe you zoom in, and then when you pinch out, you zoom out. Guys, that is what writers do. Writers, they focus on certain parts. They may focus on the weather and they may describe the weather in detail, and then they may branch out and talk about the setting as a whole. Or the extract might begin focusing on a particular character and their movement. And as the extract develops, it may branch out. A really good one, guys, is the exam paper with Mr. Fisher. It talks about how Mr. Fisher is sitting in the classroom marking while the snow is falling outside. It zooms into what he's doing, then it zooms out to what the weather is doing. When it comes to question 5, me personally, if I was you guys, I wouldn't even worry about this. Because as a writer, throughout your story, throughout your creative writing, as they call it, you will naturally zoom in and you will naturally zoom out. Because your entire story is not going to be about just one thing. So for this one, I would focus on paper 1 question 3, paper 1 question 5. You will hopefully do this naturally.
So I'll give you a paper 1 question 5 example.
Yes.
I teach my students to imagine 6 cameras in the scene, and this is for the description question. You've got something that's going to last 10 to 30 seconds so it doesn't turn into a story. And you just put your cameras in different places in the scene. Some are zooming out, some are taking in a big picture. And that gives you a really dynamic description because you've got different things you're looking at, different cameras.
Yes, perfect. I like that.
So our next is new. What the hell was that? Introducing a new character.
Wait. Up a little bit, you forgot.
What did I forget?
Shifting focus.
I shifted to the wrong focus.
Not pooping in focus, but shifting in focus.
Every time a writer moves you to something else, gives you a different focus, they're trying to get you to think about the character or characters differently. So they're really easy to write about. The writer shifts the focus to Mr. Everything English to show us what wisdom looks like.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Then the author shifts to Mr. Salles to show you what fluffing his lines looks like. We've got a positive image and a negative image to give us a fuller picture of the characters.
Now guys, structure, when it comes to zooming in, zooming out and shifting focus can be dangerous. And I tell you why. These three are so easy to pick that you may end up picking something that has no effect. Just because the writer goes from talking about the chair to the table, yes, it's a shift in focus, doesn't mean it's effective. So remember guys, paper 1 question 3 looks at the entire extract.
Yes.
Don't just jump to the first shift in focus. And normally, when the writer zooms in and they zoom out, at that moment, there's also a shift. So these three can always be spoken about together. But please guys, be careful what you pick. The danger for these three is that they're so common, they're so easy, that you may just pick one that really has no effect. So look at the question and look at the whole extract and pick things perfectly.
Brilliant.
Now we have new.
Luckily you're doing new.
Now guys, when it comes to new, under new, we have anything new. A new character, a new day, a new setting. Every time something new is introduced, it may be worth talking about. A good one is when the writer introduces new named characters. There's an extract from a past paper where the characters are riding in a carriage. And in the extract, in the paragraph, the writer talks about how there was a woman sitting at the front, there was a man sitting on the left, and then the writer names the character at the back of the carriage. By naming only one character in the whole carriage, the writer tells us that that one is important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. These first 5, these are 5 structural devices that we believe can be discussed in any English language paper. Long sentence, short sentence. Long paragraph, short paragraph. Zooming in, zooming out, shifting focus, and new. These are going to come up in every single exam. I challenge you, go back at all the past papers, pull out the insert. You will find these in every single insert. The other ones that we're going to now go over are ones that may not come up in every single exam, but you can definitely use them in your question 5s.
So we're going in with dialogue.
Yes.
Now, when you read dialogue, it's really easy to think, oh, the writer just put that in there because that's what the character said. And you're forgetting that the characters are constructs and what they say reveals something about them. And so as soon as you see some dialogue, you've got to ask yourself, what is this revealing about the characters' attitudes towards each other or something else? And that's the effect that you're going to write about. Equally, when you're doing question 5, don't put in dialogue just to tell us what's going on. That is pointless dialogue. You only put in dialogue to tell us, by showing us what the characters are thinking and feeling. So we read into what they've said. For example, looking trim today, Mr. Everything English.
I think it's
He's changed his beard. Whereas I've put on weight
It was
since the last video.
It was a fresh haircut yesterday.
Yeah.
Got the beard done because I knew you were coming.
I cut my hair yesterday as well. How sweet is
So
that?
You got to spot me, man. You got to spot me. Next one, we have a list. List is 4+. I went to the shops and I bought eggs, milk, bread, and chocolate. That's a list. A list is 4 and more. It can be used to add detail. It can be used for focus, depending on what is being discussed. But guys, a list is when the writer lists 4 or more words or phrases talking about a particular topic.
You know, we started with the long and short sentences. When you put in a long sentence, it's brilliant to have a list of phrases. So in a phrase, you're going to have a verb. So if you've got 4 phrases, you're going to have 4 different verbs in your sentences. And that's a brilliant way to get us to grips with something you're describing or a character. And it's a show-off sentence. And whenever you have a show-off sentence that works, the examiner kind of moves you up the mark scheme straight away.
And the easy wins.
Yeah.
These are easy peasy wins. You're not sitting there for hours and hours trying to think of a list.
Yeah, it's just like, what 4 verbs am I going to use?
And guys, you can even pre-plan that. You can decide what 4 verbs you want to use in your question 5 right now and make it fit on the day. Move on.
Yes, we are now going to a foreshadowing. So foreshadowing is when you drop a clue about something that's going to happen next, but the reader doesn't know that's going to be important until they get to what happens next, and then there's a kind of aha moment. So if we were to make up a bit of foreshadowing, what would it be?
An example, guys, you can use is, you all did Shakespeare English Lit Paper 1. Act 1, I believe, when Macbeth learns about the prophecies, he talks about how his seated heart is now knocking at his ribs. What is it foreshadowing? It's foreshadowing that he understands that the task that is to come is not an easy one. His heart isn't beating fast for no reason. The writer gives us clues that the character of Macbeth understands that what is going to happen later is not no easy feat. Then guys, we have a cyclical structure, circular structure, whatever your school calls it, same thing guys. What is this? This is when the opening and the ending of your writing are similar, not the same.
Yeah.
Don't get bogged down in trying to be a duplicate of what happened on line 1 to line 35. It's similar. It's easy to do guys, maybe with the mood or the atmosphere or how the character is feeling. So for example, if your character is scared in the beginning, they may feel afraid at the end, but the reasons may differ. It's when you go full circle in your text. I don't know, Macbeth is another example. He begins fighting, he ends fighting. Difference is, he wins there, he dies there.
Yeah.
But it's still similar. Not the same, but it is similar.
Yeah. He starts with MacDonald's head on a spike, and he ends with his head on the spike.
Yeah, perfect.
The great thing about a circular structure is writers don't plan this for the extract. The examiners spend ages for question 3 finding something that will have a circular structure. And so 90% of question 3s always have a circular structure in them, and you will always be able to gain marks by commenting on the effect of it.
Yeah. Now guys, this last one, I'm sure we both have experienced this.
I get loads of comments on this one.
So many. Is juxtaposition a language device or a structural device? Is repetition a language device or a structural device? Is pathetic fallacy a language device or a structural device? Is a verb? No, I'm joking. I wouldn't go that far. But those 3 guys, juxtaposition, repetition, and pathetic fallacy, constant questions. Sir, my teacher told me this, my so-and-so told me this. What is the answer? You want to take it or should I take it?
Well, I'll give you the simple version and then you can go with the more erudite
I'll
version.
try my best.
So the simple version is, it doesn't matter. As long as you're commenting on the effect, the examiner is going to say, yeah, I'm willing to take that. But you have a more sophisticated answer.
Guys, my argument, it builds on what Mr. Salles says. It all comes down to the effect. So for example, let's take repetition. We'll do all of them one by one.
Okay.
Let's take repetition. If you're talking about 3 words that are repeated back to back, and you're analyzing what's actually being repeated, that is a language analysis. But if you're talking to me about how in paragraph 1 the writer repeats this, then they repeat in paragraph 3, then they repeat in paragraph 5, then the writer is trying to create some kind of effect throughout the extract. This is a structural device being used here, where the first one is more of a language device. Juxtaposition. If your juxtaposition is contrasting what happens over 1 line or 2 lines, that's more of a language closed focus. But if you're comparing, for example, Harry Potter in the first book and Harry Potter in the last book, that's a structural device because the character contrasts massively. We're not analyzing words, we're not analyzing phrases. We're looking at him over here and him over there. And guys, pathetic fallacy, same thing. I use Jekyll and Hyde because I think it's a very nice way of looking at pathetic fallacy as a structural device. In Jekyll and Hyde, as the crimes of Hyde get worse, the fog gets thicker and thicker and thicker. Therefore, as the text develops, the weather, the pathetic fallacy, links to what's happening on the ground. We're not analyzing language. We're just talking about how the pathetic fallacy develops over time. But for example, if I'm analyzing Macbeth and I'm just looking at thunder and lightning and rain, and I'm analyzing what does thunder symbolize, what does lightning symbolize, yes, it's pathetic fallacy, but I'm giving more of a language analysis rather than talking about it throughout the text.
Yeah.
So guys, it all depends what you do with it. Don't get bogged down. It's this or it's that. It's this or it's that. It comes down to what Mr. Salles said. Primarily, it depends on the effect. What are you analyzing here? And that is what dictates whether it sits under structure or whether it sits under language. But my advice is this, guys. On the day of the exam, we're not playing games. It's not poker time. We're not risking anything. If you're not sure on the day of your exam, leave it.
Go back to, I'm stuck, I don't know what to write next. I'll go back to a change of focus and work out what the structural device is in that change of focus.
There's so many guys. We gave you guys 10. Probably more than 10. Pick any of those 10. Sir, any last words?
Well, actually, you've made me think of A Christmas Carol and the snow, how it's freezing and threatening at the beginning and then gradually gets more welcoming and playful as we move through the book. And so that would be structural language.
Structure.
Yes.
And that can be linked to form as well.
Yes.
Because Gothic genre is the build up, build up, build up. Everything changes. Book ends. The weather.
Well, we're giving too much value away for free. We are going to Peace out.
Peace.